What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. It's the Week 12 recap show, starting late, thanks to young man Jordan Love. We'll get to that topic in just a minute. He came in and threw a touchdown pass and extended that game when the Eagles were trying to snuff it out. Joining me to break down Week 12, John Breech and Ryan Wilson, who I will ask how they're doing after I tell you that since we don't make Ryan Wilson work enough as it is on the Pick Six Podcast with his HQ hits, with his writing, we decided to give him a brand new show of his own. With the first pick is the new NFL Draft Pod hosted by Wilson and longtime NFL GM Rick Spielman. You can watch episodes here on the Pick Six YouTube channel or by searching With the First Pick on any podcast platform. If you guys, listeners, viewers on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6, if you guys support the pod, you support Ryan Wilson, you should do right now. Go search for that on your platform, your Spotify, or your podcast platform on your phone. Subscribe to it and help support Wilson. It'll be a great show. Rick Spielman knows his stuff, and Ryan Wilson is an organized and earnest junior draft analyst.
That's pretty cool treatment. I'll take it.
What's up, fellas?
Very kind of you to say, Brinson. Breech. I thought Brinson was going to say what's up, and I was going to actually toot my own horn, so I didn't have to. What are you going to say?
Yeah, I thought that also. But I think I'd like to announce that Wilson, since he now has his own podcast, has been promoted from junior draft analyst to senior draft analyst. I have a hat I'm going to send you, and a shirt, and a sock. Just one sock.
Okay, I have to earn the other sock.
What happened to the other sock?
Well, he's got to get through the draft, and we've got to see how it goes.
Maybe we should hold off on the air horns on the Sunday night recap pod.
Why's that?
That's a lot. Oh, was it maybe were we air horning? Were we air horning Wilson's celebration? I don't know. Whatever. Let's get to we got a lot of games to cover. Let's get to them. By the way, Sunday is the first time in NFL history that 4 teams won after trailing by 7+ points in the final 2 minutes of regulation. The Browns came back to beat the Bucs. Jags beat the Ravens, Chargers beat the Cardinals, and the Raiders beat the Seahawks. It's also the only time in the last 40 years that 3 teams won after trailing by 7 points in the final 1 minute of regulation. Browns, Jaguars, and Chargers. Just wild stuff. Were you about to say something, Breech? You want me to move on to the Patriots?
I'm getting ready to talk, man. Yep.
The Packers and Eagles will go there first. I think Tom Pelissero had a great tweet pointing out that almost 15 years to the day, on November 29th, 2007, Aaron Rodgers replaced an injured Brett Favre in Dallas and set the stage for the transition after the season. And Jordan Love replaced Aaron Rodgers, an injured Aaron Rodgers who suffered a rib injury. It appeared on the first drive of the second half, already dealing with a broken thumb, went to the locker room, took off his jersey. Jordan Love comes in, and look, I don't think you can definitely say Wilson, the scouting report on Jordan Love was certainly one that a project who needed time to develop, but with a lot of upside. And I don't think you can definitively say anything based on his performance in the final, whatever it was against Philly on Sunday night. But the dude looked really sharp. And I don't want to bury the lead because the Eagles ran for 300+ yards. But I mean, the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing is going to be the talking point for the next probably 5 days, right?
Yeah, if not longer. So Joe Musso, who frequents the chat after Sunday nights and is an anchor CBS Sports HQ, just asked this question to me and Brian McFadden. Do you put Aaron Rodgers on the old bench and go with Jordan Love from here on out? You have an out, and Brinson likes to have an out. The out is the injury. But even if he's healthy, Aaron Rodgers ain't playing next year. Let's be honest. I can't envision a situation where he wants to come back to this organization where it is a rebuild. You can call it a tiny rebuild or a medium or a big rebuild, but this is not a good football team. They're currently behind the Lions in the division. They're barely ahead of the Chicago Bears, and that's only because Trevor Siemian had to play today. I'm rolling with Jordan Love. He's in year 3. He's got another year on his deal before you have to decide about the 5th-year option. See what you have.
Decide this offseason.
Oh, there you go. So see what you have sooner rather than later. And to your point, Brinson, and Aaron Rodgers, according to Tirico and Collinsworth, admitted that Jordan Love has looked a ton better this year compared to his rookie season or last year. He's in year 3 in terms of training camp throughout the season. He's getting all the first team reps on Wednesday because Aaron's been sitting out with a thumb injury, and he was dealing. It was only 2 series. He made a ton of great throws in those 2 series, including a touchdown pass for admittedly, Christian Watson did the heavy lifting. But what do you have to lose other than making Aaron Rodgers mad? And Aaron Rodgers, I would imagine, Breech is probably, I would put it at 5.5% that he returns next year.
I don't think this would make Aaron Rodgers mad. I know we talked about it a week or two ago that it would, but that was before Aaron Rodgers kind of started setting the table for this by going on the Pat McAfee show and saying, "Oh yeah, guys, I have a broken thumb. I'm playing football with a freaking broken thumb on my throwing hand." That's difficult for a quarterback. And so that felt like it was him saying, all right, well, when we're kind of out of this, I might go to the bench here. And then when you toss this injury in there, I will be shocked if he plays another game this season because there's no reason to risk further injury. The Packers need to know what they have in Jordan Love before they have to pick up this 5th-year option in 6 months. So it just feels like this is the transition. It has started. You're 4-8. You're not going to send Aaron Rodgers to get out there to get beat up every week when he's not playing for anything. So I think that this was the baton, the torch, whatever you want to call it. Something's being passed to Jordan Love here.
Cheesehead.
Well, I a block of Gouda cheese. I think it's possible. Excuse me. That Aaron Rodgers, like the out that you mentioned, Wilson. I mean, you have 2 injuries, and you have a team that is now the 11th seed in the NFC, 4-8. I mean, it's over, right? I mean, you have to. There's a lot of leapfrogging you have to do to get there. Now, where it would get awkward is if they ran the table with Jordan Love, and even then, I'm still not sure that would even matter. The point being is that you have three outs you can utilize here. You have the broken thumb, which really they should have utilized several weeks ago. You have this rib injury, and you have the fact that your team is out of the playoffs essentially. So, sit Aaron Rodgers, let Jordan Love play. And then after this season, you pick up the Jordan Love's 5th-year option, obviously, unless he's just complete dog crap. And then you reassess and discuss with Aaron Rodgers what he wants to do and what Jordan Love wants to do. Because Aaron Rodgers won the last 2 MVPs before this season. I mean, he's still playing at a high level. I do think the thumb injury matters. I also think, to Breech's point, he came out and, when this, it is setting the table when you're like, you finally start mentioning the injury. Like you see with Stafford, it's like, fighting through a shoulder, and it's like, or whatever it was. Like that's when these guys are looking to shut it down. The team is leaking this information out there because they know what they might do. And the other thing it does, if you play Jordan Love and he plays really well, and Rodgers wants to keep playing, and you're worried about the contract thing, you can trade Jordan Love and potentially get something good in return. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying that you play Jordan Love now for the rest of the season and see how he does, and then reassess after the season. I think your percentage chances on Rodgers playing again is, I think your thought process is fine. I think the percentage chance is way, way, way too low. I mean,
What do you think it is?
I would say it's like 60-40 he plays next year.
Why would he want to play for this football team?
Because he wants to win the Super Bowl.
Okay, again, why would he want to play for this football team?
He can't play for another football team.
But they're not winning the Super Bowl next year.
Well, if he wants to play, he can't play for another team.
That's why I think he's going to retire.
Okay. I mean, I think.
And as we mentioned, I don't know if it was last week or the week before that, if Rodgers did retire, the Packers would be taking a $40.3 million dead cap hit, according to Spotrac.
I do believe that if he were to play in 2023 and then retire after that the dead cap hit would be substantially lower for when he retires. So I think that's just something to consider. Again, maybe he doesn't want to play anymore. I think he'll play at least one more year. I would be surprised if he retires. I don't think the Packers will push him out of retirement, and they can't cut him. They can't trade him because of his contract. So, but I think there's no question that you should play Jordan Love the rest of the season and sit a very clearly injured and ineffective Aaron Rodgers rather than like leaving him out there to just get blasted over and over.
So one last thing, and we'll talk about the team that actually won. So let's say Jordan Love balls out in a way where you're like, okay, this guy is an NFL starter. And then Aaron Rodgers wants to start. Are you right back at square one?
You are probably giving the starting job to Aaron Rodgers unless he looks terrible in training camp. I mean, let's not act like he is. I mean, he hasn't been good this year. Don't get me wrong. But he won the last 2 MVPs and they went 13-3.
I don't care about that. He's 39 and he's got 1 year left. Maybe
and he's got a broken thumb on his throwing hand.
But my point is that even if he comes back next year and he's 100%, that's you only get 1 year Aaron Rodgers after that. He's not going to play for 4 more years.
And then he will probably walk away. And then you'll have Jordan Love in your 5th-year option. I mean, that's so. I mean, if if Jordan Love plays as well as you think he can be an NFL starter, then the pick actually ended up being pretty good, and the transition worked out well, even if you didn't win a Super Bowl. It's eerily reminiscent of Favre and Rodgers, honestly.
No, the pick didn't work out well because you get him for his 5th-year option, and you'll have 1 year, then you got to sign him to a huge deal.
Or you have 2 franchise tags, and then you can work out a deal.
All right. I don't think he's going to play next year, but you think he is going to play. Breech, where are you? And then let's talk about the Eagles.
I would lean 52-48 that Aaron Rodgers plays next season.
Wow, you guys are what I like to call crazy.
I mean, you're at 5.5, 94.5 that he doesn't play. That's pretty.
But this team is going to win. They could win 12 games next year. They feel like they're closer to 5 or 6 wins
next year. 5 or 6. That's okay. That's a pretty pessimistic view of a Packers team.
What have you seen this year that makes you feel good about the roster? Like who's coming?
Aaron Rodgers without a broken hand would make me feel a lot better. The defense needs to be improved, but
okay. All right. Let's talk about the Eagles.
Because they gave up the defense. They got to fire Joe Barry and bring in somebody else. Because the Eagles ran for an outrageous. They had 500 total yards in this game, averaged 6.3 yards per play. Packers actually averaged 7, which is kind of crazy. They ran for 363 yards on 49 carries, an average of 7.4 yards per carry, the most rush yards in a game in Eagles history. So second most rush yards in a game in Eagles history, behind only the 1948 Eagles against the Washington, whatever they were called then, the foosball team. The Eagles had the most rushing yards given up by the Packers since 1978 in the first 300-yard rushing game by the Eagles since their season opener in 2000. This was absolute domination by the Eagles offensive line. Jalen Hurts ran for 157 yards on 17 carries. He had 120 in the early in the second quarter. And Miles Sanders ran it 21 times for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Gainwell got on the act too. Just a total domination on the ground by the Eagles and a really impressive game plan by Philadelphia after 2 kind of shaky starts. I know the score ended up 40-33, ended up being close. Philly covered the final 6.5, but that was a domination by them on the ground.
I never thought this game was never as close as 7 points. They were up 13-0, then 13-7, and they went for it on 4th and short, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, and came up short both times. And then the Eagles came back and the Packers came back and actually took the lead 14-13. But Breech, this feels like sort of like 1991 football where you have a triple option quarterback, like college football, not even NFL, and there are no answers because he's the best athlete on the field. It's almost like Earl Campbell's your quarterback who can also throw the ball really well. And, we talked about the last 3 games. The Colts game, they won by 1 point. The Cowboys game, they lost. The Houston game, they struggled in that game and didn't look themselves, but they did win. The game before that is when they blew the doors off the Steelers and A.J. Brown was pointing at people because he was abusing them so bad. And my question is, it feels like if you find a way to stop Jalen Hurts, the runner, there's a backup plan. And the backup plan is also a huge problem because you don't have enough defensive weapons to slow down the either-or proposition that this offense provides.
You're muted.
Oh, God, Lee. Come on, Wilson, get the
go back to the early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s, and you had teams – they started running, especially in college. You run these spread offenses. You have 5 wide, and defenses weren't equipped to deal with that. So you started recruiting more athletic guys who could cover these running backs that were going to be lining up in the slot or running routes. And so, obviously we're in this completely pass-happy era right now in the NFL. And so teams have been built to stop the pass. And then you have the Eagles coming back and playing this throwback football. And I mean, what they did to the Packers, there was literally nothing the Packers could do to stop them. When it was 37 or 34-20, it was, if Green Bay wants to have any chance to come back, they have to stop this team. And they couldn't. I mean, you look at what the Eagles are doing and they just have so many weapons. It's like, if you do stop Jalen Hurts, well, there's Miles Sanders, there's Kenneth Gainwell. They just keep throwing weapons at you. And it's hard for a defense to take that, it's like Derrick Henry going against the defense in the 4th quarter. They just wear you down because there's a bunch of them. It's not just one guy doing this. So the Eagles are a very well-built team.
It's hard. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are, what team you are, where you're from. When you're 4-7 and you're down 14 points on the road on like a Sunday night in a cold city, and a team has 300 rushing yards on you, or 250 or whatever it is, like you're going to be a little bit less inclined to tackle somebody. And don't get me wrong, the Packers tackling was atrocious. They are a really bad defense right now. Their whole game plan coming into the season was we're going to be a great defense with a great run game, and I think they do still have a great run game. Christian Watson looks like he could be a budding superstar, but I mean you can't do anything with this type of defense where, and look, all credit in the world to the Eagles, because Kenny Clark, as Chris Collinsworth pointed out, was non-existent in this game. Jason Kelce, now you're getting mad at me for this, probably, Wilson, but I mean, I think Jason Kelce is a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Fame podcaster for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. He and his brother, the podcast is fantastic. But what he does with the creative style of run game that Nick Sirianni brings to the table is just outstanding. You can just like the Miles Sanders run where he launched himself like a missile at the defender, didn't even really hit him, but Sanders was like watching him and knew which way to cut and got a few more yards. Just the athleticism. I think Lane Johnson hasn't given up a sack. I mean, it reminds me a lot of the 2017 team that Philly won the Super Bowl with. They have a lot of pass rush that can keep coming after you. They have this incredible offensive line, many of the same players, and they have a quarterback who extends plays. But now they have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts who is built like, it's almost hard to explain how he's built, because it's like if you've shrunk Cam Newton a little bit, but maybe made him like even bulkier. And
no, I think Breech actually noted he's Derrick Henry. Like you're not going to.
It's fine.
You're not going to arm tackle him. It's not like Kyler Murray, who can run around and he can rip off a 60-yard run. You're going to tackle him like a safety can tackle him with his arms, trip him up. A defensive tackle or defensive end cannot bring down Jalen Hurts. They have to grab on for dear life and wait for teammates to come help him. And I've told the story before, but when he was coming out of the draft, I had an NFL offensive line coach tell me that Jalen Hurts was the best running back in the Big 12, and he wasn't like. I remember
you saying that. It wasn't an insult though.
No, he was like, no, I'm not talking about the passing stuff. I'm just talking about his ability to run the ball. It's insane, and that shows up week in and week out.
No doubt about it. It seems very good.
Do we want to give Billy his 30 seconds of?
Billy, yeah, you want 30 seconds because we did too long in that game. What you want, Billy?
There he
of course he wants his 30 seconds.
Oh, Billy, actually,
I'm just giving what the people want. That's all. I'm just giving you what the
you got to use your 30 seconds to tell the people about the Paramount Plus promotion. Then go. Actually, if we get to 100 likes on the YouTube, we will give away 5 Paramount Plus gift cards. If we get to 100, if we get to 200, we'll give away 5 more. So smash the like button. There are plenty of people in here watching. If you haven't hit the like button, go ahead and do it. Free month of Paramount Plus. Great time to have it. Billy, your Eagles, how'd they look?
I mean, I think they look really good. I think I'll just take my 30 seconds to talk about Jalen Hurts. I think you saw some like changes of him really turning the corner and being a like franchise quarterback and an MVP quarterback. AJ Brown had a weird game tonight, dropped passes, fumbled, but caught a touchdown pass. But I think it was very important that Jalen Hurts, even when he dropped passes, even after the fumble, he kept going back to them and like tried to build his confidence back up. And it's something that you see out of veteran quarterbacks like Tom Brady, like Aaron Rodgers. So it's really nice to see that like he has control of the offense. I think some things where I feel like, he could get better at times is throwing the ball away in certain situations. But other than that, I kind of like his maturation and how he's really starting to like take control over this team and really be the leader.
Love it. How about their run defense? Concerned? Billy's gone. Are you concerned about?
No, I'm not. I'm not concerned about the run defense. I mean, AJ Dillon is very tough to tackle. Like he is a grown man. You guys talk about Derrick Henry, Jalen Hurts being Derrick Henry. I think AJ Dillon's like a mini Derrick Henry. He's just so hard to tackle, and he has such a big upper body that you want to grab that first, but you can't. You got to try and grab his legs, but they're so powerful. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll clean it up. I think everybody has a little bit of trouble tackling the Packers running backs, but yeah, I'm not too worried about it.
Well, they better clean it up because they play Derrick Henry, who we've been talking about in Week 13 next week.
That's right. Yeah, interesting test case to see how they do. I actually think that the Packers probably utilized AJ Dillon in this game. They used him a lot more than they had the last few weeks, maybe all season. Probably thinking this is the only way to win is to be physical in that run game. Okay, Let's
also got to talk about Blankenship though, real quick. Got to talk about Blankenship. That was a crazy thing. Like I was actually shocked by that. I didn't know he was that good of a player, undrafted. I mean, Wilson should be able to tell us a little bit more about who that guy is.
Oh, dude,
Yeah, Middle Tennessee State, Shrine Bowl invitee, didn't get drafted, and like the rest of us, he probably didn't think he was going to be playing tonight. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got hurt, which looked like it was going to be a huge loss. And the first thing that old Reed does is jump a route and get an interception against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you can't even make that stuff up. I think he came off a little later with a bloody nose, but I think he's going to be fine. But I mean, look, we give what's his name? What's the GM? Howie Roseman a lot of flack for some of the decisions he made, including drafting Jalen Hurts in the second round. He's pretty good at putting together a roster. So hats off to him. Hats off to Reed Blankenship on that. Third, I think it's the third play of his career. Like he had not been able to do it at all.
Not bad. By the way, Aaron Rodgers said in his post game does not plan to shut it down. Plans to play next week if he's cleared. We'll see.
Cool.
Moving along from the Eagles to a Super Bowl winning coach with the Eagles and his giant pair of onions that he drags along behind him. Doug Peterson takes out the Jaguars. Jaguars take out the Ravens. Jaguars move to 4-7. Ravens fall to 7-4. Still first place in the division, 28-27. Doug Peterson goes for 2. The Jaguars score with, I believe, with 18 seconds left. Go for 2. Get the 2-point conversion on a throw from Trevor Lawrence to Zay Jones, who had a career high in receptions, 11, and receiving yards, 145, and win the game. And ironically, against John Harbaugh to go for 2 in that spot. Wilson, I'll just throw it to you and ask you this. Are we still worried about Trevor Lawrence?
Well, I'll just say this, and I say this with all the humility in the world. The worst quarterback records by a number 1 pick through 27 career starts, top of the list, Jeff George, tied with Trevor Lawrence, 6-21.
Quarterback wins is your answer, huh?
And to be truthful, it's funny. I got a couple tweets, and luckily they added Brinson to the tweet so he could retweet it like a butthole. But those were fair points. And one person, let me call them out because they actually did make a really good point.
While you look at them, I'll just point out that Trevor Lawrence 29-37, 321, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, third career 3 TD game, career high in passer rating 129.8.
Yeah. So. Who was it? I'm trying to think. I can't find it. Anyway, he made the point that not only did Trevor Lawrence play great this game, which I readily agree with, he's actually played pretty well the last few games. And I think that's also an important note. Stephen Brown III, by the way, he's getting his PhD in math at Clemson, so he's probably pretty smart. Might be smarter than me. But that's a fair point. And that last drive is exactly what we've been waiting to see from Trevor. And the offense stalled in the first half. They were up and down. It wasn't entirely Trevor's fault. But I think the bigger issue is that we just hadn't seen it consistently. And I wasn't as concerned about Trevor Lawrence as I am and was about Zach Wilson, who, can barely throw for 50 yards a game. But this is a huge win. And I think it says a ton that Doug Peterson, to your point, had the onions to put his team in that position because he trusted him. As Billy does my trolling for me with the graphic from CBS Sports social team. Yeah, you don't want to be on the same list as Jeff George and Jamarcus Russell, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a much better career. So, yeah, I take back my concerns for Trevor Lawrence. That doesn't mean he won't have a few hiccups down the road, but hopefully this is a sign of things to come. And one last thing I'll point out is Andrew Wingard told the media after the game, I'm still happy for Trevor Lawrence because he had to deal with Urban Meyer last year. I would die for Doug Peterson. I swear, I love the guy. And that feels to be the overarching sentiment when you think about this year's Jaguars team, even though they had just 3 wins coming into this game compared to last year's Jaguars team, which just is around the time last year where they played the Bengals and old Urban got in trouble going to his old restaurant there, Breech.
Wilson, one thing you said was the thing with Trevor Lawrence is just that he's been inconsistent. And this game was actually a good example of that. If you're looking at the glass half full and you want to be an optimist, you're saying maybe this is where Trevor Lawrence finally turned the corner. He made a lot of clutch plays, especially in the fourth quarter. He threw for 100 and I think 55 yards and 2 of his 153 yards and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And then, only 1 touchdown and 170 in the 3 quarters before that. had an ugly fumble in the third quarter. So he wasn't great for the first 3 quarters. He was the Trevor Lawrence we've come to know and love, that sometimes pulls a nice throw out of his hat and then, doesn't look great the rest of the game. So it's really hard to judge him. But I do think this is the kind of win that can boost his morale, the team's morale. You can rally around Doug Peterson's decision-making. Trevor Lawrence is probably going to have a lot more confidence in situations like this going down the road and in future games. So in that aspect, it was good, but it's not like he played 4 great quarters or even 2.5 great quarters. He played probably 1.5 great quarters, but that was enough to win. So, and that's all you want for Jack.
Wow, he's saltier about Trevor Lawrence than I am, Brinson.
No, I'm just saying that.
Look, if you want to hang out on the hill, like planting your flag that Trevor Lawrence is going to suck and is going to be an average NFL quarterback, go for it. That's fine. I think it's a fool's errand. I think Trevor Lawrence deserves a red shirt for last year. And I think you heard it from the announcing crew in this game talking about what Doug Peterson told them, which was, Trevor Lawrence has always had, a really bright light on, but he's like, you can see the light getting brighter each week. And like, you can tell that he's picking things up after just the worst possible season you could go through from a quarterback perspective, coaching wise, with Urban Meyer last year. So I think what we're seeing is substantial progress. The Jaguars now, I think, are they've lost all but one of their 1-score games. This is like their first 1-score game that they won or something like that. It's a team that Doug Peterson's professional approach and Trevor Lawrence improvement over the course of the season has allowed them to be competitive. And that's what you want to see from a like, it's okay. This team isn't winning a ton of games. They're making a move. I thought the Ravens, should have won this one handily. I think you have to ask questions again about Baltimore. Now I believe they are 7-4.
Hey, let me quiz you guys as we talk about the Ravens.
Okay.
So just a wild guess, and you can just buzz in and answer first. Most losses.
12.
No. You have to give me a team. Most losses when leading after 3 quarters over the last 2 seasons. Who do you think leads the way?
The Baltimore Ravens.
That's right. With 7, just 1 ahead of the Browns.
They have 4 this year, right?
Sure. Let's see. Maybe I'll get to that. 4 teams in NFL history have led by more than 1 possession in each of their first 11 games. The 42 Bears were 11-0, as were the 0-9 Saints and the 2011 Packers. 22 Ravens, 7-4.
Yeah, that's the exact stat I was about to pull from the research packet. I mean, it's
and one more.
I mean, like it's crazy. Like if you have to be 7-4 with that kind of production is deeply concerning. Like the Ravens should be, I don't know, 9-2 right now, 10-1. I mean,
I was going to say, Breech, do you want to blame Justin Tucker for causing them to lose this game? All he had to do was make a 67-yarder.
Oh man, poor Justin Tucker.
Did you think it was going in when it left his foot? Because
you know what? Well, I mean, he hit it straight down the middle, and even if you watch him, because usually a kicker can tell pretty much right away if it's going in, and he did the slow backtrack like he was willing it to go further. He didn't seem like he thought it had enough mustard on it, and it fell probably 2 yards short. But that's one where I would have sat down. If you're John Harbaugh, do we have a better chance with a Hail Mary or a 67-yard field goal outdoors in Jacksonville? It's a tough kick, obviously, because it was set an NFL record. But when you add in the fact that there's humidity had just stormed at the beginning of the game, so there's those factors into it. But you have Justin Tucker, you give him a chance.
I just realized, I was like, what is wrong with Breech's voice? I just realized you were at the Titans Bengals game today. That's probably why, right?
By the way, Breech, if you're watching on YouTube, Billy put up a photograph. That's not 2 yards short. That feels like 8 or 9 yards short.
No, it landed about 2 yards short of the end line.
It's about 9 feet short. It's about 3 yards short.
It probably makes it from 61.
Right, which it was a 67-yarder. That's my point.
62.
Well, I think what's interesting, too, is that on the play before, Josh Oliver, a Ravens tight end, caught the pass from Lamar Jackson and did the correct thing by getting out of bounds. Like, you can see he cut to the right and got out of bounds. The Ravens still had, I believe, all 3 of their timeouts. If not, they definitely had a timeout to use. You just wonder if he just like gone straight ahead and like dove forward and given himself up and slid. Could John Harbaugh have gotten the timeout off in time? Probably not. Yeah, there's 2 seconds left. It would have been really close, and you're trusting the clock operator on the road. I'm just saying, like, if he had kept going straight and picked up the extra yards, then I think Tucker could make the field goal. It was just asking too much for him to kick 67.
I thought he was going to make it. I had zero doubt. I thought he was going to stripe it. Like I was like,
well, when it came off, that broke his streak of 65 consecutive field goals made in the fourth quarter overtime, and it looked as good as it gets off his foot. And then you could tell Tucker was like, I just don't have enough on it.
Yeah. Michael Kenji Izumi agrees with me. He said it was about 10 yards short. There's no way that was 2 yards short.
That's not 30 feet short. That's just not what 30 feet looks like.
All right, what's next?
Well, but really quickly, what is your level of concern about the Ravens? Because they're still lead the division 7-4.
Here's the thing. If I'm John Harbaugh, can I petition the league just to play 3 quarters? Because in which case I will never lose another football game. Otherwise, there are concerns because I don't know what's going to change. We're here now in week 12. This is what's going on in week 2 or 3 or 4. And I just read off those stats that you were going to read off, and I beat you to the punch. So, Breech, what's going to change? What's magically going to fix this football team? Because they are who they are in terms of weird things happening to them. I don't know if they put themselves in a position in terms of John Harbaugh making a weird decision late in the game or an untimely fumble or overthrow or interception by Lamar Jackson. This was more a function of that defense just letting Trevor Lawrence do his thing this time. But, you know.
Well, I mean, also Gus Edwards had a huge fumble in the fourth quarter. With just under 6 minutes left. That's those weird things you're talking about, though, is it looks like the Ravens have it all tied up. All they have to do is go down, get one more score. It's probably over. Nope. Gus Edwards scores on the first play after Jacksonville cut the lead to 19-17. Crazy things like that keep happening.
Jacksonville cut it 19-17, and Gus, they screwed up on special teams. They screwed up the kickoff return, did a bad job with that. Then Gus fumbles, and that still only led to a Jacksonville field goal, which is kind of nuts too. Like Jacksonville got the ball on I think they got the ball on the 16-yard line, the Ravens 16-yard line, and still only managed a field goal. And then Baltimore got a touchdown after that and got a 2-point conversion to go up 7. And you're thinking this game is definitely over. And that's when Lawrence had that great drive. I think the Ravens are very much a playoff team, but they need to. They shouldn't have to worry about getting in the play. They should be the point this season where they shouldn't have to worry about getting the playoffs. And yet here we are. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, the Bucs, Tom Brady, get gutted by Jacoby Brissett. Next. First game of Tom Brady's career. And I don't know if you guys know this. Tom Brady's been playing for a while. 21 years. 22 years, I guess. In which his team held a 7+ point lead in the final minute of the fourth quarter and ended up losing the game. That is wild. The Browns are now at 4-7. Let's give what grade would you give the Browns for how they held it down relative to expectations without Deshaun Watson?
I give him a C+, only because they could have 2 or 3 more wins right now, and I think Jacoby Brissett was an absolute Jacoby Brissett's an A+ on the Russ Wilson scale, which is an F double-. I think he's been. I mean, honestly, Breech, if you put Jacoby Brissett on the Broncos, Nathaniel Hackett is not getting fired in 2 weeks.
Coach of the year in a couple of weeks.
They're in second place in the AFC West with Jacoby Brissett. And you know, I agree with Wilson. This is probably a C. And the thing is, if they had just won one other game and they were 5-6 with Watson coming back,
how about the Jets game in which?
Let me go through let me finish my thought first. The Jets game was number 1, and number 2 was the Chargers game where Cade York missed a field goal. And if they get either one of those 2 games, they're 5-6, and you feel good about where you are with Deshaun Watson coming back. But at 4-7, you're on the cusp of being hopelessly out of it. So man, it's just. The Browns, you know, usually they Browns it up and they lose games like this. And so that's big. They were able to turn the corner with David Njoku making the second most absurd catch of the entire year behind only Justin Jefferson's.
Yeah. And it was on.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Was it on 4th down? I think it was on 4th down, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. Like the game is over. Just stop on this one play. And Njoku, made a great job. Sort of got a little bit of a push off. I think it was Levante David, or was it White? One of the linebackers. He got a little bit of a push off and got loose in the back of the end zone and made an incredible catch. They go to overtime. Jacoby Brissett. He said after the game, he said, I don't, all due respect to Tom Brady, but he's like, for that to be like my last the way that would like that's my last game as a starter for the Browns. That was effing awesome. When he said, like, to quote Tom Brady, that was effing awesome. That was effing awesome. And I don't blame him, man. Like, Jacoby Brissett's a great guy. Kind of getting a raw deal.
Why is he getting a raw deal?
I don't think it would be that crazy to say, all right, Deshaun, you're sitting out the rest of the year and like,
oh god,
just be inactive and let Jacoby play. How do you think Deshaun Watson looks when he comes back?
Okay, I'm just going to ignore the last 10 seconds. You mentioned overtime, however, before that, 11 seconds ago. Tom Brady's record is 13-4 in overtime. Actually, 13-5 now after this. Do you know who holds the record with the most overtime wins?
Ooh, what a great question.
I do, because I know every overtime trivia.
All right, Brinson, I'll give you. The guy has retired in the last 5 to 7 years. I'll give you that hint. And it's not Peyton Manning.
And it's not Jamarcus Russell.
Is it somebody? Is it somebody who's like good, or is it somebody
Yes,
who's
he's good.
Oh,
He's going to the Will Brinson Hall of Fame. Let me put it to you that way.
he's going to the Will Brinson Hall of Fame. It's not Phillip Rivers, right?
No, but I mean that you'll let anyone in. So I'm just trying
Eli
to
Manning.
He was once teammates with Phillip Rivers.
Indeed.
Drew Brees.
Yes.
14
for Drew Brees.
Drew Brees is going to Hall of Fame, pal. Like,
I know, but I told you I was trying to muddy the waters.
very nice, very nice.
But yeah. So great catch by Njoku. I stand by my contention. I think I was the only person to pick the Browns to win this game among the CBS quote unquote experts. More like the lamestream media, if you ask me. But I am not sold on this Bucs team. I remain unsold on these Bucs teams. Brinson, do you want to make the case that all the teams in NFC South are below 500? Do you want to make the case that this team is going to win a playoff game?
I think the case is that if the case for them winning a playoff game has to involve the Giants or Washington creeping into that 5 spot.
I mean, are you taking the Heineke's to lose?
If it's Tom Brady at home in a playoff game, yeah, I'm probably going to take.
I mean, they beat the Cowboys in week 1. There's definitely a chance they could.
Okay.
They could potentially be any team that would end up in that 5 spot.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, like the best possible team that could end up in that 5 spot would be. I mean, I guess San Francisco, Seattle somehow stole the division.
Yeah, but you have to do a lot of squinting to try to make this work, though. That's
no, but I'm saying like it's likely going to be an NFC East team or Seattle in that 5 spot.
Well, Seattle's not in the picture right now.
I know, but they're just. I'm just saying like there's a few weeks left. I mean,
all right.
Now there is also a possibility. You know who else could be that 5 spot? Philly.
No, please stop.
If Dallas wins, if Dallas walks them down for the division, that's totally feasible.
So, Breech, how do you feel about this Browns team now that Deshaun? And I'm fine with that. I'm just thinking about we didn't talk about the Browns did win the game. I was trying to bring it back. I think you disagree with me. I disagree with Brinson about his contention that Deshaun should sit for a little bit. How's this team going to look when Deshaun gets back, which is right now, and they play the Texans next week, I believe.
Look, we were saying this in the Early Odds podcast that this guy has not played a regular season football game in almost 2 years. It'll have been, I think, 700 days since his last start when he steps on the field against the Houston Texans. There is no guarantee that he is going to go out there and look like Deshaun Watson of 2 years ago. You know, we have no idea what he's going to look like. He's an unknown factor at this point. Obviously, the Browns gave him $230 million guaranteed. So they're assuming that 2 years ago, Deshaun Watson is going to show up, but maybe he goes.
By the way, remember how I said where that line was going to go on the Early Odds podcast at halftime? It's already at 7.
What line are you talking about?
Browns -7 at Houston. It was at 6 when we did the podcast. I said, get it in now because it's going to move to 7. It's already
and and then you look at the games. He's got to go back to Houston, which is going to be crazy. Then he plays the Bengals the next week and the Ravens the next week. So maybe he could go 0-3, and then people in Cleveland are saying, please put Jacoby Brissett back in. Like, you have no idea how this is going to play out.
I know people in Cleveland. Well, my buddy who's a Browns fan who grew up there has been saying for months that he just wished they had kept the picks and rolled with Jacoby because it's not going to be worth it. But I think that Deshaun Watson, if healthy, starting every game from here on out. I don't think
he definitely is. I mean, like that was sort of a hot take that was like kind of grounded in the fact that Jacoby Brissett has gone out and been business-like with a bad Browns team, has played really well, is the polar opposite in terms of at least what we know currently, like, or what we think, you know, from an off-field perspective. I would say that Jacoby Brissett is probably the polar opposite of Deshaun Watson. And so I don't know. I just feel it just stinks that, you know, Jacoby Brissett is, I know he's 4-7. I don't know if he should be rewarded, but it's like, all right, Deshaun's back from his 11-game suspension. See you, Jacoby.
All right, Brinson, I'm going to ask you one question. You have 5 seconds to answer, then we're moving on. Deshaun Watson's back next year, starting every 17 games. Aaron Rodgers is back, starting all 17 games for the Packers. Who wins more football games next year?
Packers.
Watson.
Yeah, I think the Watson answer is closer to the truth. All right, what's next?
Next up, the Jets. Brady Quinn. Oh, Brady Quinn lost another $1,000. How fun is that?
That dude's going to go broke.
I think he'll be okay.
Is there a caveat if Zach Wilson isn't the starter? A loophole?
By the way, fun fact, leading rusher. You know who the leading rusher was for the Jets?
It wasn't Zach Wilson this time.
Sure what? Does anybody, can anybody know? Can anybody tell me?
I'm looking now. It's your buddy.
Yep. Bam Knight, baby. Zonovan Knight. Actually had 69 carries or 69 yards on 14 carries, 4.9 yards per carry, and 3 receptions for 34 yards, giving 103 yards from scrimmage, setting a new Jets record for yards from scrimmage in an NFL debut. It's amazing.
Really?
That seems low.
It does. Well, good for him.
103. Really? That seems really low.
These are the Jets we're talking about. But you're bearing the lead here.
Mike White, unbelievable. I believe he won somebody $1 million in the DraftKings Million Maker. 22 and 28, 315 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 149.3 passing rating in nasty weather against the Bears team on. It was not on the road. It was in New York.
On MetLife Stadium.
In MetLife Stadium, whatever. You can't tell the difference between those 2 crap stadiums anyway. Jets go to 7-4, 31-10 the final. I mean, probably. I mean, look, this is. The buzz, the word on the street was that Zach Wilson was basically being given a mental break to sort of recharge and kind of like step away. And it's like, all right, like let's just try and hold on, see if we can get this guy can get it back. And then Mike White comes in and plays great. The biggest question of all here, Wilson, why the hell did Joe Flacco play at all when they had Mike White when Zach Wilson was hurt? Look how this guy plays. He looked great.
Yeah, it was great. But don't forget, the guy that started for the Bears because Justin Fields banged up. Some butthole wanted to start Justin Fields this week. It wasn't me. Trevor Siemian at one point was the guy. They're like, oh, my God, this guy is going to be the successor to Peyton Manning. And he was a 7th-round pick out of Northwestern.
Right, and then right before the game, they're like, actually, Nathan Peterman's starting. And then they're like, actually, it'll be a game time decision on who's starting. It's like the game kicks off in 4 minutes. What do you mean it's a game time decision?
So, let's hit the brakes a little bit. It's a great story for Mike White, and he has played well previously, and we'll see how it goes. But in terms of him or Joe Flacco, I don't know. It might end up being a half a dozen to one, but I think the bigger takeaway, and I'm interested what street you were standing on when people said he needed a mental break. A mental break from what? Throwing for 150 yards every week? Like, he hasn't been asked to do anything. The defense has done the heavy lifting, and the running game has, Breech.
Yeah, I feel like the Jets needed a mental break from Zach Wilson, not the other way around. And look, I'm the president of the Mike White fan club. I saw him just totally destroy the Bengals last season when he came out of nowhere and they won that game 34-31. And at that point, it was like, okay, well, this guy isn't that bad. It looked like the same exact quarterback out there against the Bears. And the thing is, like, Zach Wilson just has not been good this season. And it really felt like as good as the Jets had been through the first 11 weeks, that they didn't really feel like a true playoff contender because Zach Wilson was their quarterback. But now that Mike White's in there, and not that, he's not Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but this team feels like it's in much better hands. I look at their Vikings game next week, for instance. If Zach Wilson starting that game, I'm taking the Vikings. I don't care what the point spread is. But with Mike White, it's a little dicier. Maybe I pick the Jets to win. So I just feel like he gives them a much better shot of making the playoffs and winning more games down the stretch.
Let me ask both of you this. Let's assume Mike White stays healthy. He's going to start every game from here on out. I think that's probably going to happen.
I wouldn't go there.
Okay. They're trying to make the playoffs. This is a legit playoff team. And this guy, Garrett Wilson, looked like a number 1 pick. Elijah Moore, someone threw him the football finally.
Well, you just told me to slow down on Mike White, and now you're speeding up. I agree. Look, getting the ball to Elijah Moore and feeding Garrett Wilson, it makes a ton of sense. Don't get me wrong. He's played better than Zach Wilson's played. I just think that by virtue of who Mike White is, that it's likely that at some point we see Zach Wilson play some snaps or start a game.
If he stays healthy, Zach Wilson is not going to play again. If Mike White does.
I don't think we see Zach
and
Wilson.
my question is this. What are you doing in the offseason when 2023 rolls around with Zach Wilson?
That's a whole different ball of wax. That you're not cutting him.
You're trading him to Denver because they're collecting Wilsons there.
You need another Wilson. Need a worse
The
Wilson to make
next
Russ
2
feel
weeks,
better.
he's at the Vikings, at the Bills, Lions at home, Jaguars at home. That's it. It's pretty
Like if Zach Wilson, if they lose every game between now and week 17, then I think Zach Wilson starts the final game of the year. There's no reason to bring him back. The team, it sounds like the team was frustrated with him. If you listen to Garrett Wilson's comments last week, speaking in generalities, no one was whinging this week when Mike White threw for 315 yards.
You play to win the game.
Tell him, Herm.
Look,
Yeah, when your receivers are throwing you under the bus subtly, that's and you've lost the locker room. That's usually a sign it's probably time.
I was really happy. I thought Wilson was drinking a banquet beer for a second.
No, Coors, is that banquet beer?
Of course, original is a banquet beer, not Coors Light. Look, Mike White is definitely starting next week, unless he just is completely atrocious and they get blown out. And even then, he probably still starting against the Bills.
And by the way, yeah, Salah said that Mike White's starting next week, so that part is absolutely correct.
Yeah, I mean, you're not benching him for Zach Wilson after that. I
Well,
would
said
not,
Zach Wilson's playing again.
I don't think I would put the over under of Zach Wilson starts at 0.5, and I'll take the over.
Oh,
I
0.5
will-
games.
Pound the under.
Yeah, if they're both healthy, no way.
Pounding.
Pounding. Thank you, Breech. I need to know what pounding look like. The Bears wouldn't mind if Darnell Mooney suffered an injury. He's going to be out for the season. Again, Justin Fields needs the reps. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have a problem if you don't roll out Justin Fields until he's as close to 100% as you can get him. They're not going to be very good. You know, play for your pick. Maybe you can help him out. Maybe you can grab who's the Marvin Harrison Jr. to pair of Justin Fields. That'd be fun. And by the way, Garrett Wilson this season by starting quarterback 71.3 yards per game with Joe Flacco, 45.6 with Zach Wilson, and 95 per game with Mike White. And Elijah Moore, who's a stud and demanded a trade and was acted. He's like, I don't know why I can't get the ball when Zach Wilson's in there. It's like, dude, you have these two guys, one you're drafted with and the other that they drafted in the first round to get to you. Feed these mofos. Why are you should be locking in on them, even if you're making mistakes and forcing balls into coverage. Feed Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore.
Should have told him that 2 weeks ago. He's already benched. Let me put this to you, then we can move on from NFL on CBS's Twitter feed. The last two quarterbacks with multiple games of 300 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns in their first 4 starts, Mike White and you want to guess? He's also going to the Brinson Hall of Fame.
Wait, say it again. So what's the stat?
The last two quarterbacks with multiple games of 300 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns in their first 4 starts.
First 4.
Mike White.
And
We'll start calling him Heisenberg. What's that?
Is he still active?
Oh yeah, he's the one of the 5 best players in the NFL right now.
Is it Matthew Stafford?
It's Patrick.
Joe
Mahomes.
Burrow.
It's who?
Patty Mahomes, baby.
Oh my God! You can see the Will Brinson Hall of Fame is messing me up. You're talking about Mahomes.
Yeah, that's how I feel every time you talk about it.
By the way, if you ask somebody, if you ask Madden to just auto generate a name for Mike White, but given only his photo, they would still name him Mike White. All right, the Bengals beat the Titans. Joe Burrow looks saucy after this game. Breech, I'm going to refill my glass. Why don't you talk about your Bengals? 2016, by the way, on the road. You were there at the game with the entire Breech family. And if you even want, you can tell us about your little dinner date.
Money Mac.
Well, first of all, Brinson, I wasn't at the game. My family came to town. I hung out with them on Saturday night.
I thought you were at the game.
No. My dad went to the game. My sister, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law.
Breech, are you saying
It's weird that your voice is gone? If you
because we were hanging out all day Saturday. I met them at 1:00 Saturday, hanging out all day.
Breech,
then we went,
do you believe this?
hanging out with Bengals fans on Saturday night in Nashville, and ran into Evan McPherson at the Bengals hotel. Ran into Evan McPherson.
Wait,
And-
so you just accidentally ran into him, or
Well, we were there,
Stalk.
and sometimes the players will come down because we were on our way somewhere else.
are you just accidentally at the team hotel? I got you. Yeah.
No, we weren't accidentally there. We were there. And so, so anyway, he came down and he started talking to my dad and my sister, who would probably, this is like 6:30 or 7
Yeah,
o'clock.
10 to 15 beers, sure. Yeah.
And so she decides she wants a picture with Evan McPherson. My dad's like, "Oh my God, don't do this." So, but no,
Who saw who first, Jim Breech or Evan McPherson?
I think my dad saw him first.
It was like, hey, because they obviously know each other. They're Bengals kickers.
Right. Yeah. So, anyway, Drew Chrisman's the Bengals punter. This is only his second game ever, and my sister didn't know what he looked like. I don't think I even.
No, she didn't.
So he asked Drew Chrisman to take the photo of her and Evan McPherson. She just like, "Excuse me, can you take this photo?"
Excuse me,
So literally. Yes. So she asked the Bengals punter, without knowing it was the Bengals punter, to take a picture of her and Evan McPherson.
Was she humiliated when she found out that it was a Drew Chrisman?
No, she actually thought it was even more hilarious and basically said that, when you play 10 more seasons, people want to take pictures with you, but now it's Evan's turn, something like that. It was crazy, but it was pretty funny. So anyway,
I'm sure the life of a punter is one in which you are always asked to hold the camera. But anyway, go ahead.
they're probably used to it.
Tell me the game. I'll get nice.
Yeah, so this game, if you're the Bengals, the one thing you really want to do is shut down Derrick Henry. And the way they were tackling Derrick Henry was just insane. I mean, they had defensive backs coming in, getting him at the ankles, tackling him for losses. And the way they handled the Titans offense was incredibly impressive. And I think that, we heard all week that Jamar Chase might play in this game. They finally rule him out. And look, Patrick Mahomes, his fully healthy offense was only able to score 20 points against this Titans defense. So there was some thought, the Bengals could struggle a little bit without Jamar Chase out there, but they didn't need him because T. Higgins went off. And, this is not a Tennessee defense that's easy to move the ball on. It's not easy to score points. But what the Bengals did without Joe Mixon and without Jamar Chase, I really felt like this was their best win, their most impressive win. And just kind of the one that said, hey, everyone, we're still here. We're the defending AFC champs, and we're out here to get that crown again. And so, I think if people were sleeping on the Bengals before, that this might have been the win where it said, okay, I'll start taking this team seriously.
I'm not going to go into crazy hyperbole, but I will say if you're watching a couple screens and you look up and you see T. Higgins making acrobatic catch after acrobatic catch, which he's done for most of the season, especially when Jamar went down, he looks a lot like AJ Brown out there. AJ, who's AJ?
Jamar Chase?
No.
AJ Brown?
No. Who's AJ that played with
AJ Green?
AJ Green. Gosh, I forgot his name.
Oh, yeah.
I got the wrong color. So, and he is not AJ Green through the entirety of his Bengals career, but he's a truly special player and a guy who should have gone in the first round, and idiots talked me into not put him in the first round in my mock draft.
I'm still mad about that too. I got bamboozled on that one. I love T. Higgins coming out. I was like, oh, please.
And the only other thing I'll mention, actually, a couple things. I made this note. T. Higgins caught a touchdown pass on that jump ball early in the fourth quarter to make it 20-13. And Roger McCreary was in coverage. He's their second-round pick out of Auburn. I love Roger McCreary. He is one of the best sort of cover cornerbacks that came out last year. The issue is he's undersized, and I think he ran in the 4.5s. The 4.5 was an issue, but you can be the best player on planet Earth. If you're 5'10" with short arms going against someone like T. Higgins, it doesn't matter. And that's sort of the difference. And that's just something I made a mental note on, again, pointing out how good T. Higgins is, but also if you physically, you have to be able to compete. And finally, the last thing I'll mention, Breech, on the scale of dumb special teams plays on the season, where does the one rank for the Titans giving the Bengals the ball back at the end of the football game?
Top 2. It is at the top of the list. That is
what's number one? Like, that's getting called they assigned an official to watch that.
Right. And if you're Tennessee, let them kick the field goal. You get the ball back down a touchdown. That's it. It's that easy. But instead, you get flagged for this penalty that probably gets called twice a year. I think the dumb penalty was that the Raiders also got called for a similar penalty that cost them the game earlier this year. But yeah, so the Titans special teams just absolutely blew it there with they missed a field goal right before the half from, I think, 33 yards or 35 yards. It was 20-mile-an-hour winds, 15 to 20-mile-an-hour winds in Nashville. It was this guy's first game ever in the NFL, and it just hooked on him. And, obviously hurt, and then the penalty won the game for the Bengals.
I got a buddy in a group chat. Shout out Wells, who is a Titans fan. He was like, he texted when that happened. He's like, I can't believe I'm like wishing that Randy Bullock was back into this team. Like that's how bad it's gotten.
Caleb Shudek was, I think he ended up going 2 for 3. Breech, what's going to ask you quickly right now?
Super Bowl.
Who wins the AFC North?
Oh man,
I feel pretty uncomfortable with my Ravens' futures in the AFC North.
And you can't say the Steelers either.
I would have to say 51.5 to 48.5 in favor of the Ravens.
No, the Bengals are winning.
Do you know what the odds are?
58.5 to 48.5.
No. Do you know what the odds on William Hill are right now for the AFC North?
No.
The Steelers are 80-1.
Sounds too low.
Just want to let you know. The Browns are 25-1. That's not intriguing, right? 3 games back with Deshaun Watson coming back?
No, it's not.
Probably not. The Bengals are 2-1, and the Ravens are minus 240.
Yeah, bang the Bengals.
I mean, it's all about the schedule. The Ravens have a much easier schedule. I mean,
do you know who the Ravens just lost to today, Breech?
Yes, I do know that. But you look at the Bengals; they still have to play the Bills.
Bengals schedule is brutal, man. Wow.
The Bills, the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Ravens, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, the Browns with Deshaun Watson, and then Baltimore on the flip side only plays one more team that currently has a winning record.
So the Bengals have Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson is one of his first 2 games back, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Josh Allen, and then the Ravens.
I will bet, Breech, if this doesn't happen, you will shave your head. I guarantee you the Bengals will beat Tom Brady and Deshaun Watson. So
yeah, I agree with that, though. So I will just say 2 things that I think the Bengals are the better team
I think so.
right now. That does just the schedule is much more difficult on their end. And number 2, if the division comes down to week 18, which is Bengals Ravens, I think the Bengals would win.
all right, what's next? Great win for the Bengals. The Titans are still a fun football team. I love Mike Vrabel. They're going to win the division.
Yes.
They're the Buccaneers in the sense that like it doesn't matter what they do because they're going to get that 3 or 4 seed and that's it. Like that's
their fate.
Right.
The Titans are minus 700 to win the division.
Are you serious?
That sounds
the
like
Jaguars are plus 7-1. The Colts are 14-1. And the Texans are, and this is only for just humorous purposes, 500-1.
Could you imagine if the Titans
500-1 to win? Just take them off, man.
like Titans Dolphins in the wild card round? That would be an entertaining game.
All right. I just right before, yeah.
Come on. You can do it.
Relax. Settle down, pal. I was just going to look at the AFC playoff picture really quickly.
Well, while you're looking at that, as Victor points out,
what's that?
Burrow's going to finally beat the Browns. The Bengals struggle against the Browns, Ryan, so maybe they lose to the Browns.
Oh, that's true. And then you have to shave your head. Right now it would be Miami hosting the Jets, Kansas City getting the bye, Tennessee hosting Cincinnati. Oh, no. The Titans do not want it. I mean, how about Ted Karras storming out of there, by the way? I don't know if you mentioned that or not.
That was hilarious.
That's amazing. And then Baltimore hosting Buffalo. Those are 3 really, I don't know if they're spicy, but like Tennessee does not, Baltimore doesn't want Buffalo coming to town. Tennessee does not want, like, you would much rather go to Tennessee and play them than have Buffalo come to your home stadium, right?
Nah, I don't know. I mean, there's a whole conversation of beating a team 3 times in a row. If you're at home, like, where did they beat the Chiefs last year? They beat the Chiefs at home last year or on the road?
Both.
Yeah, I mean,
They beat the Chiefs
at home
in
in the regular season and
Yeah.
in Kansas City.
I'm saying, like, if you're, is there any merit to the idea that let's say Miami wins the AFC East and is the 2 seed, that making Buffalo guaranteed to be the 5 seed? Would you rather be a wild card winner or the division winner? You know what I mean? Like, hosting Buffalo in a wild card game is a punishment for winning the division.
Buffalo has been playing great. I mean, if they get back on track, absolutely.
I don't think Tennessee wants Cincinnati coming to town. I think Tennessee and Baltimore might both prefer Baltimore going to Tennessee and versus Cincinnati, and Baltimore doesn't want to deal with Buffalo coming to town. The Jets are your current 7 seed. The Patriots are 8. And the team that we are about to talk about next, the Los Angeles Chargers.
Ooh.
maybe a season-changing and job-saving win for Brandon Staley. The second time on Sunday that we saw a team go for two late. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars did it and won. So too did the Chargers, beating the Cardinals 25-24. Justin Herbert, 35 of 47, 274 and 3 touchdowns. Keenan Allen returned, but wasn't massively effective. Austin Eckler was pretty good in this game as well. And the Chargers went for two, got it. And then they trolled the living crap out of Kyler Murray by posting Call of Duty memes, which is just tough seeing, man. Like Kyler still hadn't won since Call of Duty came out, I believe. And every time a team beats him, that other team's social media admin or squad puts out a freaking Call of Duty meme like that. Like that's tough. That is tough.
So
right?
Kyler's 0-3 since Call of Duty came out, but in his defense, Breech, he's over his career 1-7 in November. So who knows what's causing what? In terms of the Chargers, Justin Herbert remains the best social media quarterback on the planet. I mean, I love this guy, and I apologize all the time about being down on him coming out of Oregon, and that's on me.
We're idiots.
Led the team in rushing. Austin Eckler did more of his damage through the air than on the ground, but that's okay. You mentioned that Keenan Allen came back. He did some things, finally opened things up. Gerald Everett had that 2-point conversion, that little angle route, which was a fantastic play. I give Brandon Staley a ton of credit for not even hesitating. And it's interesting you mentioned the Jaguars went for it, and Brandon Staley and the Chargers went for it. And we'll talk about this team in a second. The Raiders didn't go for it. Like, they kicked the extra point, which was sort of interesting to tie it up, to get it to overtime. If you're watching on YouTube, Billy just put the Chargers tweet, which is trolling the ever-living daylights out of it.
I don't really understand this meme, but apparently it's a Call of Duty thing.
And
you don't understand the kids, Brinson.
Yeah,
I just don't play Call of Duty. By the way, you know who else didn't go for it? Didn't go for two to win the game? Carolina Tar Heels.
Oh, I didn't see that game. You have to take that with Kevin Simel. But
I'd be happy to.
But for me, the issue isn't so much the Chargers. They're 6-5. Let me ask you this, Breech and Brinson, if you want to join in. The Chargers didn't charger this game up, but they came close, much the same way that Falcons game a few weeks ago, and then last week against the Chiefs, they did what they usually do. Is this a sign of this team turning the corner, or are we only just a silly miscue away from them being the Chargers?
Yeah, I don't think beating the Cardinals is turning the corner. If anything, the Cardinals chargered this game up.
Nice.
I mean, they just kept making these dumb mistakes. I think James Conner had a fumble. There was the interception. There was Kyler Murray in the press conference after the game saying that, the Chargers had our 4th and 1 figured out. We were effed. Except he actually
we were effed.
He actually used the F word in a press conference. And talk about throwing your head coach under the bus, then saying that a 4th and 1 failed because they out-schemed us. I mean, that is a bonkers thing for a starting quarterback to say when the coach said, hey, we're going to call a play that gives you 3 options, Kyler. So it's kind of on you to make the right choice. And if you keep the ball, whatever goes on here, Cliff's putting it on Kyler's shoulders. And when it fails, then Cliff's throwing it back, or Kyler's throwing it back on Cliff and saying, well, it's your fault because you called a dumb play.
I want to note that while I have said I don't think that the Cardinals will fire anybody, and again, I'm allowed to change my mind if they keep losing and keep losing and keep losing. And
when Cliff Kingsbury gets fired, you're allowed to change your mind. Okay, we'll give you.
No, but I think it's like, when we hear like, it's like Aaron, like it's like the injuries get leaked out, and it's like, oh, like maybe they're thinking about shutting it down. The other reason that maybe that like when you hear this is Ian Rappaport tweeted out on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, this is like his update. Meanwhile, as Kyler Murray is set to return, sources say Murray and coach Cliff Kingsbury used the time not playing to get on the same page. Red flag 1. He quote tweeted, the AZ Cardinals quarterback coach relationship has been tense, but my understanding is Kyler Murray and coach Cliff Kingsbury spent the last 2 weeks talking through everything, planning how things will look, and focusing on communication. A blessing in disguise is how a source called it. And then they go out and this happens, and Kyler says, schematically, we were effed. Now, this is where you start. Now, this is where if this happens and you can't move on from Kyler, like this is how Cliff gets fired.
I said that a month ago.
But I understand you've been saying that for a month.
Not the Kyler part, the Cliff part. I mean, if you have to move on from somebody, it's got to be Cliff.
That's what I'm saying is that if this becomes an untenable, people are throwing each other under the bus publicly on a frequent basis, and they're having to leak out that they spent 2 weeks, his hamstring
Have a
injury.
romantic retreat.
Yeah, it was a
Couples
blessing in
counseling.
disguise. While Cliff was coaching, by the way, and losing, then it starts to be a red flag situation, because it's also possible that other people involved in the organization realize that there needs to be a scapegoat for this season.
If you don't think Steve Keim's been thinking about scapegoats for about 4 months now, then you haven't been paying attention.
Fair.
Also, I don't typically watch Hard Knocks. I just, after the Antonio Brown blimp incident, I sort of shied away from it. But I did make a point before today's game to go back and watch the last episode of in-season Hard Knocks, which was the Mexico City trip, in which they got their absolute doors blown off by the 49ers. And I never really paid attention to Cliff Kingsbury in terms of the way he coaches and how he talks to his team, but there's some behind-the-scenes things where he keeps saying things like, find a way. And I'm thinking, you're the coach. You find a way. Why are you telling your team to find a way? And it's a coachism, and that's things that coaches say. I get it. But as it relates to this team and specifically, you're like, okay, this guy has no idea. He has no plan. And it feels like week in and week out, he gets out coached. One of the things he has going for him is that he's incredibly handsome. He doesn't strike me as someone who is scheming things up. We have proof from Kyler Murray that he can't, to put his team in the best positions to make plays. So who knows whether he's around or not next week, next year, 10 years from now, but this team has woefully underachieved, and I don't know how you can sort of justify keeping around some of the cast of characters that are currently there.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of big decisions to make, because it does feel like, this was it. They could have saved their season with a win, and they didn't win. That's what it comes down to.
It's outrageous how.
Oh, look at that. Joe Musso's in the chat. He was there on Blimp Day when he was out on the West Coast covering the Raiders.
It's amazing how bad, like one of the things you could never predict if you had a million guesses about this NFL season, that the AFC West and NFC West would be absolute trash outside of like the 49ers and the Chiefs, and that the AFC East and NFC East would be just loading up on playoff teams. And yet here we are.
Hey, let me ask you this quickly, Brinson, before we move on. Breech mentioned that the Cardinals could have saved their season with a win. I know how Breech feels about
Chargers, you mean?
The Cardinals could have saved their season with a win.
Cardinals could have, yeah.
And I know how Breech feels about the rest of this answer, because he's a jackbutt, as my sister likes to say.
5-7, maybe.
Did the Chargers save their season with a win today?
I think that's why I called it when we introduced it. I think potentially season saving for them. You have to go out and execute down the stretch, and you have to win some games. But you lose this game and you fall to, you fall to 5-6. Yeah, I mean, it feels like a pretty big swing here on that 2-point conversion, which is kind of crazy. That is the NFL in a nutshell, right? That 2-point conversion gives the Chargers a win. Cardinals a loss, like a heartbreaking loss. The Chargers feel like reinvigorated, and if they miss the 2-point conversion, you feel like maybe Brandon Staley's getting fired and Cliff Kingsbury's got some energy late in the season. Who knows?
Cliff Kingsbury has some. I wouldn't go that far.
All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, the Raiders, did they turn their season around? Next. By the way, I should point out, Ryan Wilson doesn't do enough work around here. We're tired of him lollygagging with his grumpy attitude, complaining that he's got to do right and do draft coverage and podcast with me. So we decided to give another podcast. Congratulations, Wilson. It's actually his own show. It's a spinoff show. Wow, I have my own spinoff show. That's so cool. Or you have your own spinoff show. But that
you're Archie Bunker and I'm the Jeffersons.
No. That means like you're Saul Goodman and I'm Walter White.
All right, that works too.
Actually, I guess that's not good for me.
Walter White, like you, also
no spoilers, but not great for me.
Or Ryan is friends.
Is a stinky cologne.
Ryan is friends and Brinson is Joey.
The reverse spinoff. All right, go ahead. Keep reading.
With the first pick, that's the name of it. I don't know if it has dots or not. Is the new NFL Draft Pod hosted by Wilson and longtime NFL GM Rick Spielman. You can watch episodes here on the Pick Six Podcast YouTube channel or by searching With the First Pick on any podcast platform. If you listen to this podcast, if you watch this podcast, if you hang out in the chat, if you're all, we just got big and vertical. If you, Billy's drunk. If you support Ryan Wilson, don't have to support me. Actually, if you hate me and support Ryan Wilson, go subscribe to that podcast. Let's get those numbers up. They'll know it's coming from here. It'll make us look good. It'll make y'all look good. And we give away some Paramount Plus gift cards too. We give away 10 of them. Hell, I don't care. Get us to one. His special life buddy. We get to 150. We'll give away 10 of them.
Lucas Pulowski makes a good point. I'm basically Fraser. Like, you're Cheers. I'm Fraser. 100%. I could lean into that. I'm a huge Fraser fan.
I'm okay with that.
And Musso has a fantastic name. Better Call Ball. That Musso's smarter than he looks. I'll give him that.
This
handsome devil.
But
anyway, the Raiders.
Oh yeah, the Raiders. So the Raiders.
I totally forgot what we were talking about.
What's that?
I had totally forgotten which game we were talking about.
This is a game was annoying because they.
Why?
Well, for me, because they acted like Derek Carr was dead when they cut to this injury thing. And I was like, well, Seahawks are like -6.5 live. So I smashed them live. And then, it's like.
Gotcha.
Well, it's like he's in on the next play, but he threw a pick immediately. He looked terrible. Then he rallied. Josh Jacobs, monster game. 33
No, he
carries.
came back after the injury, threw a touchdown.
Is that right?
Yeah, one play later. The very first
pick. I think
the very first play of the game, he threw an interception.
I think. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, and it looked like it was going to be a disaster because he also got injured early, and it was like, oh no, is Derek Carr's season over? But then he came back after one play and looked phenomenal for the most part.
There you go. Yeah, I did tell somebody not to trade Josh Jacobs. Jesus, Lucas.
Again, you're burying the lead about Derek Carr. Derek Carr wasn't the main attraction on that offense.
Josh Jacobs, 33 carries, 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, including an 86-yard walk-off rumble in overtime, which was probably seen by not many people because Red Zone had to cut away, and it was only available on local CBS stations or on Channel 713 on Direct TV. But Jacobs had an enormous game. Yeah, that does check out that I told somebody not to trade for Josh Jacobs, and then he did that. Most rush yards in his first 11 games of a season in Raiders history. Josh Jacobs passes Marcus Allen from 1985, one of the smoothest cats alive. Tough game for I thought the Seahawks. I thought offensively the Seahawks played pretty well, not as good as they could have. But the concerning thing for me was how badly their defense regressed to what we'd seen earlier in the year. I mean, 74 total points scored in this game. The Raiders are who we thought they were, but Devontae Adams was making dudes miss out in the open field, and Jacobs was just he was just running for 7 yards a carry. Like, he was just dominating every time he touched the ball.
Their defense sucks, and that's been no mystery. If you close your eyes and open them at 8:30 p.m., you saw the Seahawks defense playing pretend to be the Green Bay Packers defense. They're basically the same team.
It's basically the same. That's fine. Yeah.
And that's just reality of it. I will say this. They had 2 sacks the Raiders did today. I think Max Crosby had a sack and a half. Coming into this game, they had as many sacks, 13, as Matt Judon did. So they got
Crosby. One of the Crosby ones was late and huge. On
that's right.
Second down.
So they got after it on defense, which was nice. They finally got an interception. I think they came into the game with like 6 turnovers, which is among the worst. And they got a pick from Geno. I think I'm looking at the right thing there. But in terms of Josh Jacobs, that's so incredibly huge because Derek Carr for most of the season has felt like he's taken on a lot. Whether he's been asked to do it, I don't know. And they've come up short time and time again. And I think having a running back that can do these things, and he was as effective Josh Jacobs was on the ground as he was through the air, is a great development. And unlike the other teams we've mentioned where the coaches are on the hot seat, number one, Josh McDaniels not going anywhere, even though he has more trips to the principal's office than anyone. And it feels like this team had issues in the locker room, not with the coach, and that seems to be getting better. Of course, winning Breech helps that.
Yeah, winning does help that. And, it was crazy how well Josh Jacobs played. He had the fourth longest game-winning touchdown run or offensive touchdown in overtime in NFL history. That is my fun fact for the podcast. But I thought the weird thing about this game that we haven't really seen is Geno Smith made a couple big mistakes. He's just been so good protecting the ball. And one reason that Seahawks offense has been so efficient is just because Geno Smith has been playing smart football. And he threw an interception in this game. He lost a fumble in the second half. Obviously not.
That was a handoff to Ken Walker. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. So that's on both. Yeah.
But the interception wasn't good.
But that's a fumble that can't happen.
Right. No, absolutely.
Week 12 of the NFL season. This is in practice 3 of training camp. So you can't have those things happen. But man, if the Raiders, we talked about if the Browns would have just flipped 1 or 2 games from earlier this year.
Yep.
I feel the same way about the Raiders. This team is good. I mean, I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they certainly could have been a playoff contender if just 1 or 2 games.
All right, Breech, I'll ask you the question I asked Brinson earlier. Next year, Derek Carr, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers all return. Who's the best team?
Derek Carr.
I think you're right. Brinson's making a face. He wants to go all in.
I'll still take the Packers.
I know it. What if Philip Rivers?
Look, you're taking the teams that have stunk for like generations, and I'm taking the Hall of Fame quarterback. Sure, it's fine.
All right, make a note, Billy. I'm keeping receipts.
I think the Raiders are kind of positioned to maybe let everyone take a step back and take a breath on the Josh McDaniels stuff. You're 4-7. It's not great, but you lost a bunch of 1-score games.
I feel like when Mark Davis came out and said you're not getting fired, everyone's like, okay, let's move on to harass Nathaniel Hackett.
So yeah, that's kind of that's exactly right. And so, I mean, I don't know that Mark Davis did this. Like, I don't think Mark Davis is playing 4D chess.
No, he's eating chicken wings when he said
he's eating PF Chang's. But like, by coming out and saying that, he just sort of probably like deflated the pressure around that team, and they're playing maybe a little more looser. They've been in all these 1-score games. Yeah, 4-7. It's not a great season by any stretch, obviously. But if they close strong and win some games, I think everyone will take a little bit of a easier tone on the Raiders this offseason.
One last thing,
Seahawks, tough loss. Seahawks got to win that game.
Yeah, no, of course. Again, if they had any semblance of a defense, they would have won. Just to follow up, Derek Carr gets hurt, goes out of play. Jarrett Stidham comes in the next play, throws a touchdown to Amir Abdullah. That's when Amir Abdullah did the karate roundhouse kick and got flagged for whatever. Not what is it called? Unsportsmanlike conduct. It was awesome. Like, it was freaking tastic. He was right at a Karate Kid, and he almost kicked the defender in the head. It was so funny.
Did the Seahawks take the penalty on the extra point, or did they put it on the kickoff?
I don't know. I was too busy laughing at Amir Abdullah, thinking it was a great idea to try to roundhouse kick someone at a football game after scoring a touchdown.
It's pretty good. All right.
Anyway, yes.
Commanders beat the Falcons. Commanders, as of right now, are the 7 seed in the NFC. Let's talk Commanders and look at this NFC playoff picture.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch a ton of this, but the one fun fact I have is Taylor Heineke is 10-4 in his last 14 starts.
I mean,
gracious.
It is like I feel bad crapping on Carson Wentz. I mean, I don't, but I mean, it's like, Carson Wentz gets pulled out of the starting lineup, and they put Heineke in, and this team just sort of rallies around this guy because they don't have to deal with Heineke anymore. I don't know if they're good, but I don't think they're bad.
They're exciting. And Heineke, he threw a terrible interception in the first half, and then he came back and he made a bunch of throws, and that seems to be the blueprint.
Can we not talk about this game and just talk about Brian Robinson's big hat? I can't stop.
Let's talk about it for a minute and move on. Because, I mean, it's the Falcons. As Breech noted over Thanksgiving, the Lions are probably a better team than the Falcons, and I think I stand by that. I don't know if Breech has changed his opinion based on the way they played today.
19-13 in the final, by the way. Brian Robinson, 105 rushing yards. Do we have a big hat photo available, Billy?
If you haven't seen this big hat, it is absolutely amazing.
I don't care. I know that I like to think about weird tangents and stuff. I can't stop thinking about this big hat. I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
Right. Have you ever seen anybody else wearing a big hat?
Darth Helmet. Lord Helmet.
From Spaceballs. Like,
Here it is. If you're watching on YouTube, zoom in on that, Billy.
and he's asked about it. He said, my friend, so this guy was on Shark Tank who makes these big hats. And he's like, this is going to be the new style. It's this big hats. And he's wearing that big hat to support his buddy. And I'm sure that more times than not, I am the one who is in the wrong. Well, actually, I mean, or it looks like he doesn't know what's cool when it comes to fashion.
I think Brian Robinson no longer looks cool when it comes to fashion.
Is this okay? What are the 5.5% chance Aaron Rodgers comes back next year? What is the percentage? And by the way, if you're listening to the podcast, go to Sam Fortier's Twitter account. It's got like 150,000 likes. What is the percent chance that these big hats become a thing?
100% chance. They're awesome. I mean, you already said you want one. If I can get a pick six one or a Bengals one, I'll wear it everywhere. Literally everywhere.
Breech, a couple of sort of logistical things. Now, it's great if it's raining because it's basically a built-in umbrella on your head. But when you get in the car, you got to take it off. Look, you can't get in the car. You're going to hit your head every time you get in the car.
No, then you buy a convertible. It's a lifestyle, Ryan.
It's a lifestyle. Okay.
Wait. You buy a convertible to wear the big.
You have to get a chin strap for it.
I don't understand how anyone was like, you know what, we need big hats.
James wants to know if we can get Brinson Sucks big hats.
Yeah, that I'm not.
Yes. These hats are $75 a piece. You can make them fully customizable for $125. Now this is like so. I think apparently Brian Robinson was at Alabama with the guy who created the big hat's daughter, and they became friends. And so he's trying to help them out. He's like somebody was like, "What's the inspiration for the big hat?" He's like, "It's my friend's dad, and I'm trying to support their biz." And they were on Shark Tank. I don't know if they got any money, but
here's the thing: I give Brian Robinson credit for helping his buddy out because this is the exposure that this thing has gotten. Because none of us knew about it. I went and looked at their Instagram page. They have people all over the world wearing these stupid hats at football games and stuff.
Do they?
I had no idea. Yeah,
on their website, it's like somebody who's in Nashville wearing a Titans big hat.
So
okay. Hold on. I have a couple questions. One, is this exactly like the puffy shirt situation from Seinfeld?
No.
Okay, in the sense that big hats. So you think big hats will become a thing?
Big hats are a thing.
There's
an NFL player wearing one right.
Have you ever seen a person in real life, like in your real life, not on Twitter?
Yeah, there was a Titans one.
No, you have not seen anyone wearing a big hat, have you?
No, but that doesn't mean. I mean, Billy, you're 26 and you're into you fashion yourself a fashion person. Might you run into someone who has one of these big stupid hats on?
No, there's no way.
Okay.
Would you wear an Eagles big hat?
I want Billy posing, getting photographs taken of him in a parking garage wearing an Eagles big hat.
All right.
I mean, like if we won the Super Bowl, I'd probably wear.
There we go.
I probably would wear it. I probably would. Who cares? But I would not willingly wear that.
Okay, but my second question is what is the functionality?
Oh, there's
no watch the Shark Tank. Like, what does the big hat do for you that
it's an umbrella
hat wouldn't do?
It's an umbrella in the fashion statement. It's not. There's no functionality.
But he's not outside. It's not raining.
Then it's a fashion statement. You have two choices.
I mean, it's just like back in the day when people wore big T-shirts and baggy jeans.
Right?
Is that
why do you have a beard? Like, what purpose does that serve, Brinson?
Well, why do you have a beard?
Well, I'm not the one questioning the big hat.
That is true. You've been all in on the big hats from Jump Street, Breech. I'll give you that.
Right. The beard. Okay, I don't want to deal with shaving. How about that? I mean, that's a pretty easy answer. I didn't attach this beard to my face. I mean,
drew it.
Right. But the big hat is not a natural part of the body, Breech.
But to Billy's point, I mean, you have baggy shirts where you can wear shirts that fit. You have baggy jeans. You can wear jeans that fit. Now, I guess you run out of things that are baggy, so you make your new hat the size of a friggin' pumpkin, and you put it on your head. I mean, it's crazy.
The mere fact that we're talking about it, it's going to become a thing now.
That's the thing. Like, this is they could not have paid for more publicity than what they're getting for free. So Brian Robinson did his job.
Should we do a podcast where we all wear big hats and or start going HQ in big hats?
Yes.
There you go. All right, let's move on. We can't be talking about it.
Is it like a?
You got to order one. I can't talk about this anymore.
Okay. This is all I want to talk about.
Obviously. I know you're obsessed, and it is incredibly weird. Granted, don't get me wrong. I just don't want to spend 10 more minutes on it right now.
I do want to say one thing about this game, because we were talking about how the Chargers didn't charger up their game.
Yeah.
And the NFC version of the Chargers is clearly the Falcons, who falcon things up all the time. And they totally falconed up this game. They got down to Washington's 2-yard line with under a minute left. And if they score, you go up 2019, you probably win the game. And Marcus Mariota gets taken down for a 2-yard loss, tip ball interception, game over.
Yeah, we even buried the lead on that
the
too.
Play calling, everything fell apart at that point.
All right, Breech, thanks for bringing us back. What's next?
Yeah, good job. NFC playoff picture really quickly. Philly still the 1 seed at 10-1. Minnesota nipping on their heels at 9-2. San Francisco 7-4. The 4 seed Tampa Bay 5-6, and then the wild cards all currently in NFC East teams. Dallas right behind Philly, just 2 games. Giants in the 6th seed, and then Washington the 7th seed. Right now, we would have Washington. These are something else. These NFC playoff games of the season ended today. Washington at Minnesota. I feel like Taylor Heineke and crew could pull an upset there. Just think it's interesting to note.
So you think Washington has a better chance of beating Minnesota than they do of beating Tampa Bay?
No, I didn't say that. I just said that. Of course, Washington beat Tampa Bay. I mean, I think like that 2-7 matchup is not. Like, what's the line there? Minnesota minus 5.5 or 6?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Giants at San Francisco. That is a truck stick coming.
That line is minus 14.5.
Yeah, it's like 12.5. It gets steamed to 14. That's right. And then Dallas at Tampa Bay, which is a pretty spicy matchup.
That line is plus 5.5.
Oh, Dallas is favored by like 2, probably at least.
Which of these teams in the NFC that currently aren't in their current spots that I'm about to mention here, which team is most likely to finish in first, and which team is most likely to finish outside of the top 7?
Well, I mean, it has to be Tampa Bay, right?
No, I'm asking you. It's your choice.
Tampa Bay, by the way, minus 430 to win the division. Falcons 7-1. Saints 10-1. Panthers 18-1. Weird.
Well, I mean, you look at the NFC East has all 4 teams in right now. I do not think all 4 of their teams are going to make it.
You got to give me names, Breech. What team
is give you a division
likely to finish?
I think the loser of Giants Commanders this week is gone. They're done.
Giants Commanders. Okay, and which team is
over that the loser of that team?
And which team
although they play each other, the Commanders play the Giants 2 games in a row. They play the Giants and they have a bye, and they play the Giants again.
Well, that's just those 2 teams' season right there.
And which team is going to finish first? That's currently not in first. That's not the Philadelphia Eagles.
I would say, I guess the answer is I'll say Dallas, but I think the answer is probably an NFC South team.
The 49ers are going to finish first if the Eagles don't, and the Giants are falling out.
Ooh.
Oh, you meant who's going to be first? The one. Sorry, I misunderstood that. Who's going to be?
Yeah.
You did a terrible job asking the question.
Well, you kept interrupting and was talking.
Who's going to be the 1 seed? Who can steal the 1 seed from Philly? Is what you're saying.
There you go.
Oh. San Francisco's a good answer.
I know. That's why I worded it so vaguely, so you wouldn't know what I was saying.
Can so Seattle can definitely make the playoffs at 6-5. Behind them,
definitely sounds strong.
I mean,
just the way they're playing, not their record.
Yeah, Atlanta 5-7, Detroit 4-7,
yes,
4-8. I mean,
Giants are falling out. Lions are coming in. You heard it here first.
God, that'd be fun. I want Dave. I need
the
Dave
Lions.
Don't scoff. Breech.
All right, let's do some quick hitters. The 49ers shut out the Saints.
I mean, I have zero to say about this game other than when can we see Jameis Winston again, Breech?
Never.
Never. He didn't play bad. Andy Dalton didn't. But I mean, what do you have? Who cares at this point?
49ers defense is just rolling, man.
Yeah, and the Saints stink. It's a whole thing. Great for 49ers.
It is improbable. Have you ever seen a team get shut out and they didn't punt a single time in the second half?
No.
Well, you talked about the way the Falcons.
Since the pre-Drew Brees era.
I'm just saying that's how weird this game was.
You talk about the way the Falcons lost. I mean, the same thing happened with the Saints with Alvin Kamara down there at the 1-inch line.
They got inside the 49ers 6-yard line twice, and came away with 0 points.
Is that good?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. So San
Jimmy
Francisco.
G, by the way, took a helmet to the kneecap late in this game. It was like, oh man, because everyone's so hyped. I mean, he got up and it was fine after that, but it like, if it had gone the wrong way,
Yeah,
it's just a reminder how quickly like this team that everyone's getting hyped up for, the 49ers could. Jimmy G gets hurt and it's cool.
Imagine that's where we're at in the conversation. Like no Jimmy G and the season's over. It was supposed to be no Jimmy G the whole entirety of the season.
It's just Chiefs rolled the Rams.
Yeah, I mean,
I actually watched all of this game because I had a Patrick Mahomes stack. It was the Fox game of the week. And then Stafford ended up playing. Mr. Perkins, 13 to 23, 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks.
Here, hold on before you keep going. How many passing yards did Bryce Perkins have in the first half?
I would say like 4.
Breech, do you want to guess?
I guessed 4, and then Brinson spoke over me. You stole my guess, Brinson.
Oh, you both went over the Showcase Showdown. It's 3.
Oh, I was gonna guess 2.
Here's the only stat you need to know about this game. The Chiefs at no point were in any concern whatsoever about the Rams winning this game. They went 1-6 in the red zone.
They didn't care, and they still won by 16 points.
Yeah, I mean, if they go 4-6 in the red zone, this is the biggest blowout of the week.
And it's crazy to think that before Sunday, the last time these two teams played, it was the 54-51 game. And now
right?
It's only been 4 years, and we're at this point where the Rams are trash this year, and the Chiefs sleptwalk through this game.
Do you remember waking up and reading like all the like articles about the game? It's like the football has been changed forever, and then like the Super Bowl is 13-3 or whatever.
Is that it, or is there something else?
What?
Another game?
We got 2 more games.
What else we got?
Dolphins
Oh yeah,
steamrolled the Texans. They're up 30-0 at halftime. They actually didn't score a single point in the second half. And with 2 minutes to go, I also had Tua stacks. Thanks a lot. With 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, they pulled Tua. Jeff Wilson had been banged up. Teron Armstead had suffered a strained pec. Basically, Mike McDaniel was too worried Tua might get hurt. He had almost suffered a really bad injury right before halftime, but was able to walk off. And so they pulled all their players, and the Texans put together like some weird drives. The Dolphins did nothing with Skylar Thompson in there, and Houston managed to get to within 30-15 with the ball, the chance to score. Dolphins defense had a touchdown too. It was a real false hope run by a 1-9-1 Texans team that is truly pathetic. And the Texans are much, much worse than they were last year under David Culley.
You talk about Jimmy G being the key to success in San Francisco. I thought they should have gotten Tua out as soon as he got split in half late in the second quarter there. He stayed in for a little while longer.
It was like the final drive of the second quarter, I think.
Yep. He was in there in the middle of the third quarter taking hits as well, getting sacked. So, I mean, I get it. But at some point, if he gets hurt, that's a wrap. Breech, since coming back from concussion protocol, which has been 5 games, what is Tua's record?
Undefeated.
5-0, baby.
5-0, 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Tua has all right. Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Josh Allen. Connect these MVP odds. 4-1, 5-1, 10-1.
I'm guessing Tua is 10-1.
Tua is 5-1, and Josh Allen is 10-1.
Holy Moses!
Ooh.
Yeah, Hurts is 4-1.
By the way, those 4 wins are 5 wins if none of the teams he's beaten have over 4 wins.
Here's another fun fact, Breech. Both the Dolphins and the Bills are 8-3. The Bills are 0-2 in the division.
That's trouble for Buffalo.
Sure is. All right. Dolphins look good. The Panthers road. What did they ride to a win over the Broncos, Wilson? Do you know?
The Sam D train.
Sam D.
By the way, here's what I wrote after Darnold carved up that sorry excuse of a Broncos team. Defense is actually good. The offense. Don't fall for Sam Darnold. Like he looked great out there.
Where did you write this?
At moments, I make notes during the game because I have a podcast.
I wrote this. I was like, what?
No, but he looked good, man. He had a great touch pass late in the first quarter to DJ Moore. It looked like USC. Sam, the bigger takeaway for me wasn't the Panthers because They are the Panthers. They're sort of fun because they don't have anything to lose. But
Broncos are absolutely the Broncos are so bad.
So
the
my
Broncos had 2 competent possessions in the first half, and they ended with a lost fumble inside Carolina's 25 and a missed field goal. So even they're competent, because this offense doesn't do very good very often, and even then they're still shooting themselves in the foot.
How is Russell Wilson this bad?
No, hold on. Before we get into that, the Broncos are averaging 14.2 points per game this season. Second worst in franchise history through 11 games. You have to go back to 1966. So to Russell Wilson, I don't know, but you can't cut him. So guess who's getting fired?
Correct.
The question is,
I was asked about that on the Panthers pregame show with my buddy Jim Zoki, and I was like, look, here the deal is like Russ. The ownership is going to look at this and say, this is a Nathaniel Hackett problem. We'll hire somebody who will come over here and work with Russ. And I think that just because of Russell Wilson's stature, despite this year, that it will be an attractive job. The Broncos is still an attractive job, right?
Breech, do you think that's an attractive job?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
They have a top 3 defense in the NFL. If they had any talent at quarterback or offense, they would.
The quarterback can't move though.
If the Panthers just beat this game wasn't close at all. I mean, the Panthers dominated this game. 23-10 final score. Would you rather take the Panthers job or the Broncos job?
Panthers. And let me just, you can make that face. I mean, you watched the game. You've seen Russ Wilson all season.
I would take the Panthers. So I wouldn't have to move very far, but I mean.
But here's the other thing. There's a reason. Like we were making fun of Pete Carroll until September and that season opener against Seattle.
We were wrong.
So why all of a sudden is this an attractive job when you know that Russ Wilson allegedly is probably a pain in the ass to work with? No matter how good the defense is, you still got to go in the meeting rooms and hear him. You see Mike Purcell talking to him on the sideline?
Yeah, he got yelled at by his defense. He's a pain to work with. He's not good right now. You're stuck with him for the next 3 years. He demands, he won't read off the wristband, and he demands.
No,
I think Frank Reich to Carolina is a possibility.
He doesn't want that headache, dude.
Carolina's this is Sam. By the way, do you see the Sam Darnold fire drill touchdown?
I just saw the touch pass to DJ Moore. I didn't see the other one.
So he they did a read option play, and he takes the ball and he's running in, and he starts to get tackled, and as he's getting tackled, he falls. He drops the ball. He recovers the ball, and then he does.
Oh yeah,
he does 3 or 4 rolls into the end zone because he was untouched. It was awesome. It was stop, drop, and roll. It was amazing. DJ Moore playing pretty well as of late. The Panthers. I mean,
oh gosh, here we go.
Panthers could win. Panthers could win the division.
Oh, no. Wait a second. You two guys are just talking up Tom Brady. Make up your minds.
All 4 teams are under 500. Anything is fair game in this division, man.
No, that's fair. I won't argue with that part of it.
Let me ask you this. So my real quick, should David Tepper give Steve Wilkes the job next year?
Yes, I'll stand by what I said when he got the job. Though he could go undefeated, and he ain't getting the job.
Well, so Matt Rule got hired by Nebraska over the weekend, and it
saved him some money.
Well, it was reported, yeah, but that's a huge deal, though. Not as big as Tepper, who's rich, but it was reported that most, essentially 34 million, the majority of $34 million would be offset by the Nebraska job because you got 8 years, 72 million from the Cornhuskers, which sure,
you do you.
But that allows Tepper to be a little more aggressive with going out and trying to give somebody a ton of money.
He doesn't care.
I mean, you don't want to be spending $70 million on 2 coaches, one who doesn't work for you.
All right, well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Do we need winners and losers for Breech's newsletter?
Winners and losers.
All right. Sorry. I will say that a winner is Mike White.
You blew it. It's Trevor Lawrence, dummy. That's my winner, Breech.
Right. I'll take Trevor Lawrence as a winner, and then somebody else can take Zach Wilson as a loser.
No, you're not trading
Trevor
Lawrence for Zach Wilson.
Trevor Lawrence is my winner.
You hate that guy. You want him benched.
Trevor Lawrence is my winner.
All right, Breech. I'll say Jacoby Brissett's a winner because this is his farewell game, even though he should continue to start.
But he's losing his job to.
But he went out with a bang. He beat Tom Brady in overtime. Tom Brady's 14-3 at 13-4 in overtime before that game.
That's true. My winner is double J, Josh Jacobs, in a contract year, leading the NFL in rushing. He's gonna get paid, and he's gonna buy a bunch of big
tag. That's what he's getting.
He's gonna buy a bunch of big hats with that money.
Oh, my loser. It's a 2-for-1 breach. Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray, the weekly losers on this.
We've
podcast.
literally had them like every other week.
My loser, Zach Wilson. Mike White goes out and lights up the Bears while you're on the pitch. And like a little, there's a graphic they showed during the Fox broadcast where it's like second half production by the Jets last week is like 2.6 inches per play.
Is that good?
It's
I
not.
don't think that's good.
Oh, another winner, Rick Spielman, because he gets to be on a podcast with me going forward
Ooh,
Yes.
that's my winner.
with the next pick. Wherever you get this podcast.
My loser is Lamar Jackson
My loser is Rick Spielman.
Yeah, for real.
for losing the game and then going on Twitter and berating someone.
Yeah, that was not a good look by Lamar Jackson.
My loser, me. I got the name of the podcast wrong. With the first pick, not with the next pick. There we go.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, the next pick is better.
And then my podcast could be called With the First Kick.
There you go. Better
Wow,
call
it's
ball.
perfect.
All right, let's go.
All together.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure to go subscribe to With the First Pick on your podcast platform. You can watch it on our YouTube channel as well. For Buddy McBreecherson, for Ryan Wilson, I'm Brinson. We'll see you guys later.